Hello, you're watching Ellie from Elementary Paper Crafting. I'm an independent Stampin' Up demonstrator here in the UK. I've been playing again with the Poinsettia Petals stamp set. So I'm using it again to make some of my Christmas cards. Now I've made this one, which I think is quite a traditional Christmas card, obviously using the reds and green. But this time I thought I would do a sort of sepia colour one. So I've chosen to use crumb cake and very vanilla, and I might introduce a bit of gold as well. So it'll be along the same lines as this, but slightly different, just to show you that things can look completely different just by using different colours. And in this case, I'm going to use a different size card. So this one is, well, it's what people call a 6-inch square, but actually it isn't 6 inches, because when you fold a piece of A4 cardstock in half, it's not quite 6 inches, it's about 5 3/4. So that's the size of that one. But the one I'm going to use today is actually a 5-inch square card. So let's start then. Now, I have done a lot of this preparation in advance. What I've done ahead of time, I have taken the stamped images. I've taken the large one and the middle-sized one. Let me just check that I am speaking the truth here. Yes, I took these two and I stamped these, and then I used the dies here which have the veining. Let me just bring that up a bit. It has the veining in, and that's really nice. When you use the dies to cut out the stamped images, you do get that nice veining in the cardstock. So what I did was I stamped it on the very vanilla using crumb cake, so that I've got this effect. And actually you can't see the veining, but it is there. I can see it, and the person who receives the card will. So I stamped the middle-sized one and the large one. So I'm going to layer those up like so. And then I also cut that larger one in crumb cake cardstock. So that's going to go behind it. And then I've done a similar thing using the smaller stamp. And again, I've cut it out in the crumb cake. And then I've done these tiny little ones, which there aren't stamps for. These are purely the small dies which are here. So that's the stamping and cutting that I did ahead. Now, in the background of this one, you will see this music background. Now, unfortunately, this particular designer series paper was retired some time ago, but I do have rather a lot of it left. Although this fits in beautifully, it's white, and my theme is going towards the cream and crumb cake. So I want to actually bring this down to fit in with that colour scheme. I'm going to take my crumb cake stamp pad and my blending brush, and I'm going to load it up with colour. And I'm going to just brush it lightly over my DSP to take off that stark whiteness. We really don't want that colour on this particular project. And I'm really just going over very, very lightly. And as you'll see, I'm using a piece of post-it note here to rest on the cardstock so that I don't get any fingerprints on it. And also I don't get the ink on my fingers, which would transfer to my work. So that doesn't take very long at all. And as you'll see, that will now blend in quite nicely with our cardstock. So I'm using my Tombow multi-purpose glue. I've put that into my fine tip applicator bottle, and I'm just going to go round the edges mainly, and then just quickly go over the middle very lightly, and then pop this on, and I've deliberately cut this to leave myself a border of approximately 1/4 of an inch all the way round. So I cut this paper at 4.5 squared. So that's my designer series paper stuck down in the background. The next thing I want to do is make the frame there. So today's frame is going to be made from crumb cake cardstock, but I don't want it to be plain. So I've decided to stamp it with a nice background stamp, and I've used the stacked stone today. I thought this would be in keeping, and I'm going to use my Stamparatus to do this. I think it would be easier. So using the Stamparatus means that you can position your piece of card in the Stamparatus, bring the stamp down and release it, and if it's not stamped clearly, you can restamp it without the danger of it being in the wrong place. So just to keep my cardstock in the correct place, I've actually cut it to exactly the right size, which is 4 inches square. So I can't use the magnet to keep this in place because I want to stamp on the edge. So what I'm going to do is take a post-it note and fold it in half. I'm just going to place it on the back of this in the middle, and then that will just keep that cardstock in place, and when I take the post-it note off, it won't tear the paper. So that makes sure that that's in the middle. Now I'm going to just use tone on tone for this, so I'm going to use the crumb cake stamp pad again. What makes it easier actually is if you pop your stamp case underneath, it brings this plate up level, so that when you apply the ink, you know you'll get it all over. So then I'm just going to shut that down. You don't need to put a lot of pressure on this, you don't need CPR. And just, I'm working actually around the outside because it doesn't matter if it's not heavy in the middle. Just want the outsides done really. Okay, so that's that stamped. So now I can cut down this to make the frame. So I want this frame to be 1/2 inch thick. So what I'm going to do is use my Stampin' Up trimmer, and I'm going to bring it around this way. I find it easier to work this way, and I don't need that anymore. I'm bringing this corner in to meet the 1/2 inch mark on this side. So I put that onto the 1/2 inch mark here. And then I'm going to move down so that it's down to 3.5. So that will make it 1/2 inch from the bottom and 1/2 inch from the top. So I lift it up. I'm going to turn this 180 degrees and bring it back to the 1/2 inch mark. And then it's already on 3.5, that's where we left it, and bring it up to the 1/2 inch mark. And then I'm going to turn it 90 degrees and do that again. And I'll do that twice more, and that will mean that all our cut lines meet up together. So I've taken out the middle section and left our frame. So quite a simple project. The trimmer is just so useful. I don't know how I ever managed without it now. It saves all the uncertainty when you use a craft knife. I know a lot of people don't get on with craft knives. So that can sit in the middle there to make our frame, but it doesn't look very interesting laid flat. So I like to bring it up with a bit of dimension. So there's lots of ways you could do this. You can use our dimensionals on this, but you'd need quite a lot to go all the way around. So I'm using the foam adhesive strips. because this will be quicker. And let's just get those out. So these are thin strips, and I'm going to use a couple on each side just to build this up. So it's really easy to use. Just going to come in about 1/8 of an inch or so. Now I like to use an old pair of scissors when I'm cutting foam tape, or anything sticky really, because you do get that sticky residue on the scissors, and I don't want to have to keep cleaning off my scissors. So I just use this old pair only for this job. I don't use it for anything else but cutting sticky things, and then I don't have to clean them off all the time. Now this doesn't have to be even at all, so you don't need to take an awful long time on this. Just make sure you do get it along most of the length, because you don't want this to buckle in or anything. So that's all that done. So I'm just going to remove the edges, move the backing tape from this. Okay, so then bring my card back in and place this down centrally like so, and then you've got your frame. So I'm going to bring in all my little bits that I've cut. Now I'm just going to shape these a little bit. They look nicer if you just give them a little bit of shape. So with my bone folder, I'm just bringing them all up like so. I'll do the same on all of them. And then I take my bone folder and I sort of push it down so that I make like a vein down them. And some of them I press from the bottom and some from the top, so that they're not all the same. And then I kind of very gently angle them a little from the centre, and this gives them a little bit more life so that they're not just flat, they look more like flowers. So I'll just speed this up a bit while I do the rest. So they're all shaped now, so they look a little bit more realistic. So I'm going to go ahead and just put a little spot of glue in the centre of this one and place the next size on top like so, and just give that a little bit of pressure to make sure it's stuck down nicely. And then I'm going to do the same with these smaller ones. I'll just pop that on the back of that one just because it's that much smaller and I don't want the glue to squirt out. So if we put it on the back, we know we haven't got too much. Okay, now I don't want these leaves to lie perfectly between like that. I want them to come out a little bit further. So what I'm going to do with this one is just cut these off separately to give me 5 leaves that I can then place as I wish. So I'm just going to pop a little bit of glue on the front of this leaf at the base there, and I'm just going to come underneath the flower and just hold it with my finger and thumb and adhere it where I think it will look nice. Just do this to whatever pleases your eye. Oops. Just put that one back again. The smaller one I am going to stick that one on the back because I don't want it to be too big on the corner here. So there we are. So we are almost there. Now I've just added some tiny little gold dots in the centre there. Now they came from this tiny little die which I keep in a bag. This is a tip I got from my upline Esther Howard. She's from Stampin Star Creations. If you've got any tiny little stamps and dies in your set, very, very often they get lost. They get stuck on the back of things and they get dropped and you lose them. So I always put those away in this little bag inside my stamp set. And that's the little tiny stamp. And this is the little tiny die, which comes in 2 pieces. So if I just bring that out and show you, one die cuts like this and the other die cuts like that, and that one cuts out the tiny little dots, and that's what I'm using. So it cuts out, oh, I don't know, what is it, 6 or 7 of them. So any that are left over, I just cut a load one day, and I've kept them in this tiny little bag so that I don't have to keep cutting up the dots. This is really tiny and really painstaking, but I do think it's worth it. So I find it's easier to deal with them if I pop them onto my little silicone mat, because it stops them getting lost. They stay where they are then. Now to pick these up, Stampin' Up do a tool called a pick me up tool. This is the same kind of thing, but I happen to have this one from very many years ago, and it's very, very similar. So it's got a little bit of, they call it putty in the top. I think it's actually blue tack, and what it means is you can pick up these really easily. So what I do is I put some Tombow adhesive, tiny little spots onto the centre of my flower. But don't worry about the glue being there and showing, because it dries clear. And then I just place these tiny little dots onto my spots of glue. And for this small one, I'm just going to put down 3 little dots. I cut all my nails, well, I had my nails all cut down really short this time. Give them a chance to grow up nice and strong again. And it is proving a little bit more difficult to pick these up, but I done it. So here we are, that's our flowers finished. And we're almost there. So I'm going to stick this down in the corner now. So I always get the larger one in first, and then I pop the smaller one in. So I'm doing this so that the larger leaves, the leaves that are protruding are down into the flower, because I don't actually know it's going to be at the end, the card smaller than the envelope. so I can actually pop them over there without any problem. So I'm just actually, what I'm going to do is build these up on some dimensionals. So I'm going to pop them under here because it's quite, I want the poinsettia to sit up more, so I'm going to put 2 of these on just to give it a little bit more height. I thought I might need more than 1, but I think 1 will be fine. Yeah, that looks good actually, I like that. And then this one, I'm just going to stick it on the front like so. Now just give that a minute to set up. I don't want to knock it and spoil it, so I keep those out. I'm going to use that in a minute. So to finish this off, I'm going to stamp the Merry Christmas greeting. Now I had made my mind up to use the large one there, but I'm now having second thoughts. With this being so much smaller, this might be too much unless I pop it across the middle. No, I don't think so. I think we need something smaller. So I think I might use Warm Wishes from Our Home to Yours. And a little tip, line up the actual word, the bottom of the word on your grid paper here, and then pick the stamp up with your block. So I'm going to stamp this with some gold embossing powder just to make it pop out of there, a bit more colour, and the gold will go with the little gold dots. I'm just going to switch on my heat tool. Sorry about the noise, but this will help if it's hotter before I start using it. So before you use any embossing powder, or it's a good idea to use the anti-static pad. This takes off any grease or anything, and put some on your fingers as well, so that if you touch the card you won't spoil it, you won't put any grease on it. So let's get my greeting. I'm using Versamark sticky ink, and I'm going to stamp it once and twice. It's always a good idea to do it twice, just in case it doesn't come out quite as you wanted. You've got 2 chances then. I'm just going to pop this onto a piece of scrap paper, so if any of my embossing powder goes astray, it's easy to get it back in. So I'm just going to give this a generous coating, turn it over and give it a flick with your finger to get any excess off, and then in case any spilled onto the paper, which it did, I can just shoot that back into my container. By the way, the embossing powder comes in little tiny pots like this, and I put it in there because I find it easier to use. So then I'm just going to take my heat tool, and it's a good idea to just come from underneath first to warm up your cardstock. It's a good idea to use your tweezers too, less chance of burning your fingers. So if you come from underneath, it tends to help to stop it warping quite so much. And then just bring it across. And once it's shiny, it's dry. Don't keep going over it because you won't improve it. And we've actually got two good stamped images there, so I've got one to use for another occasion. So this just needs to be cut down now. Just cut that there. And then I'm just going to take a piece of the crumb cake cardstock . So now we've got the greeting. Bring my card back in. I think I might put it up on some dimensionals up in the middle there. Very often when you're working, you've got something in mind, or you've done a prototype like this one. I've made that one in advance, and being just that little bit bigger, this one could take the larger greeting, and it looked quite nice on the edge there. But on a smaller card, things do look different, and you can use a different effect, and I think this one will look better like so. So there you have it, the same stamp set, same shaped card, and two different looks using a different size of card and different colours. So I hope you'll enjoy. I hope you've enjoyed that. I hope you like the card, and perhaps you'll give it a go or something similar. So if you've enjoyed the video, it would be really great if you gave me a thumbs up, subscribe to my channel, follow me on Facebook, and click the like buttons, etc. If you would like to purchase any Stampin' Up products, I will link my shop in the description box below. If you're watching on Facebook, you'll see a link at the top for my shop. And I hope to see you all back again soon. And thank you very much for watching today.